I don't know how many of you saw Truth. It was 2015, but it was about CBS News and Dan Rather and Mary Mapes, who did the story of George W. Bush and the incident of when he had a DUI and all of that. And it caused actually the end of the road for Dan Rather and Mary Mapes, and 60 Minutes was in trouble. That movie, it was as pertinent as Nuremberg, as Zodiac, as these particular films that you are doing, that are like ripped from the headlines in some ways, you know, when they come out. I mean, Truth should be re-released for what's going on at CBS News right now.
Oh, God, thank you. Thank you so much.
That was Robert Redford playing Dan Rather in that movie. And now this film coming out, which is based on the book, The Psychiatrist and the Nazi, and all of Kelley's work, I think, as well. I think you went back and did a lot for the screenplay here in creating this. So it's not really that book. That book is more of a biopic, or it would be, of his whole life. So talk about how you came upon the book and how you decided to zero in on this part of his life and this story, which a lot of people don't know.
No, thank you so much. And I didn't know either. This came to me 13 years ago. And I knew Jack L. High, who was the author of the book, through another project. And he sent me the book proposal, which was only about 5 or 6 pages long. And it's the quickest I said yes to anything in my life. It was the story of Kelley and Goering and how they met each other and their relationship and how they both ended up. And I was just so taken by that relationship. And also the fact that this was a period of time, you know, we all did American history class. We all sort of heard about the Nuremberg trials. For me, it was the period of time I thought I knew about, and then when I dug into it, I realized I knew nothing about.
Right. Well, there was, of course, Stanley Kramer's film,
absolutely.
Judgment at Nuremberg, 11 nominations. It won a couple of Oscars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, very famous film. But that really was the trial.
Right, and that happens a few years after this. That's when they can't get a judge. So they bring in Spencer Tracy. It was sort of, they had gotten down to the lower ranking Nazis. And this, to me, was the first trial, was so fascinating. And I just was so enamored of the relationship between Kelley and Goering. And we talked a lot about Silence of the Lambs at the very, very beginning, was sort of the idea of a man going into a cell and talking to another man. And so I said yes. I used my own money to option it. Which you should never do, but I did, and started researching it. And one of the first things that happened to me was I started reading about Robert Jackson, who wasn't in the book, the Michael Shannon character, and everything he did to make the trials happen. And I had this moment where I went, oh, I thought my movie was over here, but I think it's also over here. And then I read about Howie Triest, Leo Woodall's character, and I went, oh, my movie's also over here.
That's Howie, the young sergeant.
Howie, the young
German,
sergeant, the German translator.
Translator.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which as a screenwriter is terrifying. Because you want it to, you know, I mean, adaptation is, you know.
You just want a normal 3-act structure.
Yes.
And you didn't have that all of a sudden.
You know, no, I didn't.
But that's what I love about this movie.
Yes.
Is that it's not traditionally structured in the way you might think it might be. So even though this is all history and really happened, when you're watching this movie and, you know, Michael Shannon's case just goes to hell, you go, wow, what happened?
Yeah. And that's absolutely true. That's exactly what happened to him. You know, and it was one of those sort of things that, you know, all of the stuff in the trial are from the transcripts. That is actually the cross-examination. That is what they were saying to each other. There was subtraction, obviously, but it was he really got it to the 1-yard line and then fumbled the ball. And David Maxwell Fyfe, Richard E. Grant's character, was the one who saved the day. And it was one of those things when I was doing the research and I got to that and I went, I mean, you know, you can't make that up. You know, it's so incredible.
Well, it's so compelling. And then with the Rami Malek character, Kelley, he's sort of like cast off when you go like, what? You know, the movie's still got an hour to go. And, you know, what happened. But then it's sort of key the way it's weaved back together with Shannon's character here.
Yeah. Once I realized it was going to be about those three men and how they intersected and how they were all sort of trying to get something over on somebody else. It's sort of Kelley is trying to get something out of Goering. Goering is trying to get something out of Kelley. Jackson is trying to get over on, the Allies and basically make them have these trials. It's all different people trying to sort of pull a con on each other and a trick on each other. And I kept going back to this idea, which was absolutely true, that Kelley was an amateur magician. And it was everybody trying to pull a magic trick on everybody else.
And as we learn, he committed suicide.
Yes.
In the late 50s.
In the late 50s.
Partially, I think, what happened to his life and going through this.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that from the book proposal immediately got me. And the fact that he used cyanide, which is, first of all, it's a terrible way to die if you don't know it. So it's not what one would choose. And I just sort of thought it's such a deliberate choice that it had to have some echo to his time with Goering. And that's what Jack, the writer of the book, believed as well. And I just went the parallels to both these men's lives and how they affected each other in ways they never anticipated was so fascinating to me that I wanted to explore it.
And, we want to put everything in a neat box now. Evil, good, as we found. It's not always the case here. No. It's a little more complex, more shades of gray, that Goering, like a lot of these Nazis, was someone who lived a normal life and got caught up and became that person, but wasn't necessarily that person.
No, I think, the amazing thing about Goering that I found from my research was, first of all, he was considered incredibly charming and gregarious, and somebody once described him as the best dinner party guest you could ever have, which is not what I think of when I think of a Nazi. But it was just that he was so, seductive and seductive towards Kelley. And so I really wanted somebody who could play that, who could seduce us. And that's where Russell came in. I knew I needed somebody in that role who had that level of humanity to him. And I really liked the idea of using his screen baggage against us. You know what I mean? Someone who we've seen for 25 years play the hero, play the nice guy, play the one who's sort of, you go, oh, he's so nice. I feel bad for him. And then sort of weaponize that against the audience and against Kelley.
And how did he respond when you went after him with the script?
He was amazing. We didn't know each other, but I knew his agent, and I sent it to his agent in 2019, which was now 7 years after I'd started working on the project. So this took a while. But I sent it to his agent, and his agent called me back, and he said, Russell's read it, and he likes it, and he's in. And I said, great. So we'll get on the phone. When does he want me to pitch him my, all the, and he goes, No. Russell read the script. He's in, which, as you know, doesn't happen. And he stuck with it for, it's an independent film. Money comes in, money falls out, money comes in, money falls out. So there were so many opportunities where he could have just sort of looked at me and said, I wish you the best of luck. I'm going to go. This is not going to happen. And he stayed with it the whole time because he really wanted to play this part. And, and this movie would not exist without his dedication to playing Herman Goering.
And he and Rami Malek have both Oscar-winning Best Actor winners, and they have that cat and mouse game that is so well played between the two of them, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, no, Rami was an incredible get for me, too, because he is a guy who can just have offers come in and stuff like that. So, but it wasn't a thing that we offered to him. He had gone to his agent and sort of said, I just want to read what's good out there. And thankfully, his agent gave him the script, and he raised his hand and said, I really want to play this. And I went, oh, my God, I would love for you to play that. I'm such a huge fan of yours. And the thing about both of them together that I love, and I was so excited to get them both in the film, was they're so different as performers. And their energies are so different. They vibrate at different frequencies. They're both very intense. But there's an oil and water element to them that I sort of thought to myself, seeing those two energies rub up against each other in a cell, I thought would be so fascinating to watch, and they didn't let me down.
And I love Richard E. Grant, who played the British lawyer who saves the day. A perfect casting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, if you need a British lawyer to save the day, Richard E. Grant is your man.
He is. He's done so much great work. Know, I was glad he finally got recognition from the Academy in that Melissa McCarthy movie that he did. I was going to ask you, like Stanley Kramer did in Judgment at Nuremberg, use the actual black and white footage,
Yes.
real documentary footage, and put it in the film. And
Yes.
what was the decision there to do that in this film?
I mean, that was from the very first draft of the script. I knew that I wanted to show the footage. I wanted to show the real footage. And, when we were prepping the film, our first AD said, so how are we going to do this? What are we going to shoot? I was like, we're not going to shoot anything. We're not going to depict anything. We're going to use the real footage. We're not going to put music under it. We're not going to try and movie anything up. And then with our actors, who are wonderful and want to do all of the research in the world, every single one of them, when I met with them, I said, listen, the footage is out there. Do me a favor. Don't look at it. I don't want you to do that because on the day, I want it to be fresh for you. And they all agreed. And then on the day, we rebuilt the courtroom to within an inch of scale. I mean, it's the size of the courtroom. We had 300 extras there. And on the day, I sort of went out to the extras and the cast. And I said, this is what we're doing today. And this is what you're going to see. And, I want to prepare you for that. Then we had a moment of silence. And we brought in a real projector. We didn't blue screen it or anything like that. And I had 4 cameras that day because I knew I wanted to capture as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And I set up the 4 cameras on our principals, and we showed the film. We have really great actors in this movie, so I don't want to say no acting was required, but their reactions are real reactions.
That was all real.
That was all real.
First take.
That was first take, and that was definitely the hardest day, but it was definitely a day that we all knew we needed to do and get through because those images, I think, are as powerful as they were 80 years ago when they were shown in the courtroom.
What draws you to these kinds of stories? I mentioned Truth. I mentioned Zodiac. Now, what I didn't mention is he's a very prolific screenwriter of the Scream series, the Scream movies, the horror movies, Spider-Man, all kinds of things to make a few bucks, I imagine.
Yeah. I love movies, too. I love all kinds of movies. I love popcorn. I love comedy. I love drama. I've worked with Adam Sandler, and I've worked with David Fincher. And
the murder mystery movies you wrote, and I believe you have the next Scream movie you've already written.
We've done the next Scream movie, too. So I love all of that. But for some reason, for the ones I go very deep on, I keep coming back to darker, more historical things. By the way, a question my wife also asks me. Why are you drawn to these things? Yeah. So, yeah. I think it's the human condition. I think that the thing that was one of the many things that was fascinating to me about this story is scratching at, and Kelley scratching at, what is the nature of evil? What allows men to do the evil that men do? And I think that journey, that desire to try and figure that out is something that I'm fascinated with. It's sort of what Zodiac is about, too. It's what this is about. And I think it's something about the human condition, ultimately, and I don't necessarily know if there's an answer at the bottom of that dark well, but I keep trying to find it.
Well, yeah, and you take something that happened decades ago here and everything, and just like when you watch it, there's so much in it that's relevant to audiences today and to the life we're in today as well. It's like the more things change, the more they don't.
Yeah, it's fascinating for me just to sort of watch it come out today because it really, truly was. When I started writing it 13 years ago, I thought it was relevant then, and I certainly think it's relevant now. And I think, unfortunately, it will be relevant in the future. But I think it's important to look backwards in order to go forwards.
1 or 2 questions, I can take them. If somebody has a burning question, somebody somewhere. Yes, sir, right here. Yeah. Okay, can you just repeat that?
Yes, so the question was, Kelley and Howie visit the wife and daughter multiple times during the story, which really did happen. Were they breaking some sort of rules in terms of doing that? I don't think there were rules specifically set out to what you can do in your off time. I think that they probably were supposed to report that they found the Goerings. But I also think that was, and again, this was one of the things that was fascinating to me, was this idea of Kelley is starting to cross a line a little bit. And he wants to get to know this man as a human being, and he wants to understand him. And one of the best ways to understand someone is to meet their family. So there's definitely a good reason to do it, but also is he crossing a line and doing that? And I think that's why it's a great question, and I think why you should be questioning it during the film. I think he absolutely was.
Sending letters back and forth. Anybody else that, yeah, right here. Okay, he's asking about Kelley's book, which did you read that?
Yes, I read Kelley's 22 Cells in Nuremberg, which is a fascinating book, and you can still get. I did read it. I think there were a couple of reasons it failed. I think it was the conclusions it came to were not necessarily conclusions that people wanted to read about. And it wasn't a situation where he was trying to tailor his findings to what people wanted to hear. He had gone through this period and this process, and these are the conclusions he came to. Gilbert wrote a book, as well Colin Hanks' character, which came to very different conclusions, which did much better. That book also came out first, too. But yes, we used that text a lot, and a lot of scenes in the movie come directly from that book. The scene at the end of the film when he's in the radio station, some of the things he says are verbatim from his conclusions in the book. So we definitely used that as a touchstone. And one of the things I did when we first started was I gave Rami a copy of it, and he carried it around with him the whole time. And that was a little bit of his Bible going through the whole movie.
So cool. Well, our time is up because they've got another movie coming in here. But thank you so much, James.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
man.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for coming.
All right. Thanks, guys.